What's going on, guys? FadeitLuie here, bringing guys a brand new video. We're gonna be doing a mid-taper on my boy, so stay tuned. As you guys can see, he has a lot of hair. We're chopping it all off, so we're starting off with the foreguard all the way closed, and we're making sure everything's nice and even. Now that we're done cutting the top, we're going to go ahead and saturate the hair just to make sure everything's nice and laid down. While the hot towel is getting hot, I'm going to go ahead and bald out the back and make sure everything's nice and neat. Now we're going to use our hot towel. We're going to lay the hair down as much as possible using the hot press. Now that the hair is completely laid down, I'm going to go ahead to the back line and make it a little bit higher just to make sure that the bald line isn't too low. I hope you guys are enjoying the video. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe is greatly appreciated. Also, if you guys want to show some extra support, go ahead and leave a follow on the Instagram down below. Now that we're done balding them out, we can move on to our 3-guard all the way open, and we're going to debulk the back. Now that we're done debulking the back, we're going to go ahead and move on to our no guard all the way open and create our second guideline. You want to make this guideline around 1 inch thick so you can spread the blend. Now that we're done setting in the guideline, we're then going to slightly close the lever midway and all the way closed and attack that initial guideline. Now that we're done erasing our initial guideline, we could then move on to our 1 guard all the way open and create our 3rd guideline. Remember, we're also going to use this same guard and its lever to soften up this line and get ready for the half guard. Before we use our half guard and finish up that line, I'm going to go ahead and create my 4th guideline with my 2 guard all the way open. This is going to help us blend into the larger guards on top. I'm also using the 3 guard all the way open right above the 2 guard all the way open. Now I'm using a 4 guard all the way closed, and I'm making sure everything's nice and even and connected to the top. Now that we're done debulking and building our base with the 2 guard all the way open, we can then move on to our 1.5 guard and erase the line completely. I'm making sure I detail as much as possible with my 1.5 guard, especially using the corners and the lever. Here I'm making sure that the back taper is consistent throughout the back of the neck, and also I'm debulking the sides so it's easier for me to line up the side neck. Since we'd used a 4 guard on top, I'm using the 3 guard all the way open to debulk and make sure everything's nice and even. Now that we're done debulking the sides, we could then move on to our Gold FX and create our first guideline. You want to make this guideline at a curved shape so that the burst taper could burst. Using a curved shape is also giving contour to your taper. Now that we're done budding them out, we go then move on to our no guard all the way open and create our second guideline. You want to make this guideline around 1 inch thick so you can spread the blend. We're also going to create our third guideline with the 1 guard all the way open right above the no guard all the way open. To erase our initial guideline completely, we're going to use our lever midway and all the way closed, and we're going to attack it as much as possible while flicking out. Here I'm using the 2 guard all the way open to create my fourth guideline, and I'm also getting ready for the 1.5 guard using the lever. Now we're moving on to our 1.5 guard, and we're going to use the corners in this lever to erase the line completely and connect the taper. Here I'm detailing as much as possible with my half guard, and I'm making sure I use the corners of the blade. Moving on to the beard, we're going to go with the grain with the 3 guard all the way closed, and we're going to keep the beard as thick as possible. Now I'm going with the grain with the 1.5 guard all the way open near the chin area, and I'm also just debulking and flicking out as much as possible. Now that we're done debulking, we could then move on to our no guard all the way open and create our second guideline. Now that we're done erasing our initial guideline on the sideburn, we could then move on to our 1 guard all the way open and create our third guideline. Now that we're done detailing the beard, we could then move on to our Gold FX and move on to the back neckline. I always start off at the bottom where I work my way to the top arch using the corners of the blade, especially when I'm doing the neck airline and the C-cup area. Make sure not to press too hard near the ear area and the bottom of the neck area, because those are a little bit sensitive. Going back to the beard, we're going to start off at the middle and work our way to the sides using our Gorda effects. Before we line him up, we're going to prep the hairline with a little bit of hairspray by combing everything in place and making sure nothing moves. Now that we're done prepping the hairline, we can use our Gorda effects to start off at the middle and work our way to the sides. We also want to make sure to keep his hairline as natural as possible and not keep in the corners too deep. You also want to make sure you go slow enough that the hair feeds into the teeth of the trimmer, because if not, then the hair is going to shift and then you won't line them up properly. I hope you guys are enjoying the video. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It's greatly appreciated. Also, if you guys want to show some extra support, go ahead and leave a follow on the Instagram down below. Now that we're done lining them up, we can move on to our Turkish razor and Durban Premium blade to make them as crispy as possible. But before we do that, we're going to apply some shave gel so that the blade could glide better. When you're using the blade, you want to stretch the skin as much as possible and keep the razor at a 45-degree angle for the most part. This lowers the likelihood of you cutting someone. What's going on, guys? FadeitLuie here, bringing you guys a brand new video. We're gonna be doing a mid-taper on my boy, so stay tuned. We started off by cutting the top with the foreguard all the way closed. He was doing a big transformation. He usually has curls on top with the mid-taper, but now we're gonna do a 4 on top with the mid-taper and make sure everything's nice and even. Now that we're done debulking the top, I'm gonna saturate the hair and try to lay everything down. Now that the hair is nice and saturated, we're going to use our comb to lay the hair down as much as possible. Before we use our hot towel, we're going to go ahead and create our first guideline in a back taper, contouring to his neck shape. We're doing this while our hot towel is warming up. Now that our hot towel is ready, we could go ahead and apply it on the head. This is going to help us lay down the hair and make everything nice and even. Okay, now we're going to take it off and drag the towel across the head. As you guys can see, everything's nice and laid down. Then it's going to dry and lay down even more. Now that we're done bonding them out and laying the hair down, we can move on to our no guard all the way open and create our second guideline. You usually want to make this guideline around 1 inch thick so you can spread the blend. Now that we're done setting in our second guideline, we could go ahead and slightly close the lever midway and all the way close and attack that initial guideline. Now that we're done erasing our initial guideline, we can move on to our 1 guard all the way open and create our third guideline. As you guys can see, I'm using the comb to feed the hair into the clipper. We're then going to slightly close the lever midway and all the way close and attack that guideline. This is going to help us soften up the line and get ready for the half guard. I hope you guys are enjoying the video. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It's greatly appreciated. Also, if you guys want to show some extra support, go ahead and leave it for super things down below or follow the Instagram. Now that we're done softening up the line with the 1 guard and its lever, we can move on to the half guard and erase the line completely. Now that we're done with our half guard, we can move on to our 2 guard all the way open and create our 4th guideline. As you guys can see, I'm using the comb to feed the hair into the clipper and I'm flicking out with the clipper guard. Also, we're going to use this same guard and its lever to soften up this line and get ready for the 1.5 guard. As you guys can see, now that the line is soft enough, we're moving on to our 1.5 guard and we're going to use the corners and the lever to erase the line completely. Sometimes there's still a faint line after using your 1.5 guard, so switching over to your 1 guard all the way open would definitely help. Moving on to our 3 guard all the way open, we're going to create our 5th guideline and tie everything into the 4 guard on top. Here I'm going into my previous guards and I'm making sure everything's nice and even and I'm getting any dark spots that I see. Moving on to our 4 guard all the way closed, we're going to make sure everything's nice and even. Before we line up the ear line, we're going to make sure the side tapers are nice and smooth and blend in naturally to the sides. Now that we're done detailing, we can move on to our gold FX and start off at the bottom, working our way to the top arch. Make sure to be gentle when there's thin skin because you could bite them with the teeth of the trimmer if you press too hard. Okay guys, I started making it as a high taper, but then I remembered he wanted a mid taper, so then we turned it into a mid taper. I apologize, but watch how this is transformed. When I made my first guideline, I cut off a lot of the C cup that I was going to cut off anyways, so it actually gave me a head start. Now that we're done butting them out, we can move on to our no guard all the way open and create our second guideline. When I did my first guideline, there was a lot of overhang and I started off very low, so I'm able to use my gold FX and recover the C cup. So no damage was done, no worries, no worries. This cut came out perfect. Now that we're done budding them out, we can move on to our shave stick and we're going to apply this before we use our foil shaver so he doesn't bump up. Now that we're done removing the stubble, we're going to slightly close the lever midway and all the way closed and attack that initial guideline. Now that we're done with our initial guideline, we can move on to our one guard all the way open and create our third guideline. As you guys can see, I'm mainly using the corners of the blade making a rainbow shape. Now that we're done softening up the line with the one guard and its lever, we can move on to the half guard and erase the line completely. Now that we're done with our lower guards, we can move on to our two guard all the way open and create our fourth guideline. Remember, we're going to use this same guard and its lever to soften up this line to get ready for the 1.5 guard. As you guys can see, now that I'm done softening up the line with the 2 guard and its lever, we can move on to the 1.5 guard and erase the line completely. Now we're moving on to our 3 guard all the way open, and this is going to help us connect to the 4 guard on top. Here I'm going into my previous guards like the 2 guard, and I'm detailing as much as possible. Also, as you guys can see, my opposite hand is on the top of his head, and I'm pulling the skin, stretching the skin as much as possible. Now we're heading back to the 1.5 guard, and we're going to detail as much as possible using the corners. Now we're heading back to our guard effects just to detail the C-cup a little bit more. As you guys can see, this taper is coming out real nice and clean. Now we're detailing with our no guard all the way open, and we're going to use our corners to flick out as much as possible. Now we're going to move on to the other side, and I usually start off at the bottom, working our way to the top arch using the corners of the blade, especially when I'm lining up my C-cups. He does have a lot of overhang over his hairline, so it does look like I'm cocking him back, but he actually has no hair there, it's just overhang. When you're using the trimmers, you want to make sure you go as slow as possible and make sure that the hair is feeding into the teeth of the trimmer, because if you don't, then the hair is going to shift and then you won't line them up properly. When you're lining someone up, you always want to make sure you spend as much time here and take your time. Never rush this part. I hope you guys are enjoying the video. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It's greatly appreciated. Also, if you guys want to show some extra support, go ahead and leave a super thanks down below or follow the Instagram. Now that we're done lining him up, we can move on to his goatee. Now that we're done lining up his goatee, we could go ahead and move on to our foil shavers to remove the stubble. Now that we're done removing the stubble and making sure everything's nice and clean, we can move on to our Turkish razor and Derma premium blades and make them as crispy as possible. When you're using your razor, you always want to keep it at a 45-degree angle and stretch the skin as much as possible with your opposite hand. This lowers the likelihood of you cutting someone.